Well, you got a great story, man. You're helping people raise test scores. You've had a lot of wonderful experiences, obviously, on a very high level with Shark Tank. So I want to begin our conversation with, we're looking at the calendar. 4 years ago, this pandemic began. We were wrapping our heads around it. I'm curious, how did you survive the pandemic and how did it change you?
Yeah, so the pandemic was a major shift for our company because prior to the pandemic, my company Prep Expert, which does SAT and ACT courses, we were primarily in person. So we were in about 20 cities, including my hometown of Vegas, including some West Coast cities, East Coast cities, Midwest. And what ended up happening is a lot of these courses were happening in conference rooms that were pretty small. So we had to, we were really unable to continue to do our courses at those locations. So we really made a dramatic shift, which is we closed all of our in-person locations and we went fully online and digital. And, it was difficult at the time because we were on leases and we had to pay early cancellation fees and all this stuff. But in the long term, it ended up working out beautifully because we were able to scale a lot faster online. We could be in 20 cities, but now we're in thousands of cities with thousands of students around the world, not just in the United States, taking our SAT and our ACT courses. And the other benefit of the pandemic for us was parents and students really just in general became more comfortable learning online. Before, I would say 10 years ago, it was really hard to convince a parent, that their student was going to take an online course.
Yeah.
Now it's pretty much the norm, and everyone's used to learning on Zoom and, other platforms. And so there's not that cultural barrier anymore to online course and learning. So yeah, I mean, it had a huge impact on us.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this to get to the heart and soul of exactly what you do with your company and what your role is. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third grade students. It's career day. One of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Yeah. So I would say I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Prep Expert. What we do is test preparation. So we help parents and students in high school with college admissions exams, such as the SAT or the ACT. We help them get into college, but also help them earn merit scholarships to pay for college. We also do some college consulting to help you with your application to college. And that's really kind of in a nutshell what I do. And I'm this when I say CEO to the third grader, it means I kind of run the top of company.
Yeah, for sure. What did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
So my dream was to become a doctor. And
Okay.
what's funny is I'm actually a doctor as well. So I'm a dermatologist and I went through college, I went through medical school, through dermatology residency. And now what I do is I practice teledermatology. And I really just do that part-time, like 5, 10 hours a week. And that's just to keep my diagnostic skills and my licensing up. The other, 80% of my time is spent being the CEO of Prep Expert.
So you had the chance to be on one of probably the biggest um, soapboxes, so to speak, in the country, being on Shark Tank. Talk to me a little bit about the birth of this idea of helping people on testing and how it culminated into the show and what happened afterwards.
Yeah, so the reason I got into test prep was really out of my own experience. I raised my own SAT score from average to perfect when I was in high school. And, that had life-changing opportunities for me because only 0.02% of all students get a perfect score. So I got into some top universities. I got a $500,000 in college scholarships. And so I started Prep Expert. And in the very first 6-week SAT course I ever taught, my students had an average score improvement of 376 points, which is equivalent of taking a student from the 50th percentile and putting them in the 90th percentile, completely opening up their college and scholarship opportunities. And so, over the past 12 years, we've helped over 100,000 students now improve their SAT and ACT scores, get into top colleges, and win over 100 million in college scholarships, But the highlight of the company is what you mentioned, which was I took it on Shark Tank a few years ago, pitched it for an investment, my company, and I ended up closing an investment deal with Mark Cuban for $250,000 for 20% equity. The deal went through, and Mark Cuban's been an amazing investor, advocate, and partner for the company ever since.
That's wonderful. So, talk to me a little bit about who a role model or an inspiration has been for you. You're obviously very highly driven with medicine and being an entrepreneur. Who's been that fuel for you?
Yeah, so my biggest role model is my father. So my father is very similar to me actually in that he's a healthcare provider in that his day job is a pharmacist. And then at night when I was growing up, we owned a motel and a gas station. So, when I was growing up, I basically saw my dad wake up at 5, 6 a.m., go to a mail order pharmacy from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Then he would come back at 3 p.m., go to the gas station from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m., then help with customers at the motel from where we lived from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., and do that 7 days a week. And so I really think that, although I didn't know it at the time when I was young, but seeing that example of hard work and entrepreneurship when I was very young really instilled that in me to work super hard in my own life and as well as be an entrepreneur. So, I think it's really important that parents set great examples for their kids because you never know what that kid is kind of instilling in the back of their mind from their parents' examples.
So the one thing about Shark Tank is that you have these entrepreneurs that are very wealthy and successful, and they've done a lot of really good stuff like Mark Cuban has. In the realm of being an entrepreneur, who has that hero been for you? What's been the example of a business model or an entrepreneur where you look at them and you're like, man, that's the way to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I have so many entrepreneurs I could tell you, but one that stands out is Jeff Bezos. I mean, Jeff Bezos, I think he gets a lot of crap from people on being a billionaire and all this stuff. But if you think about what he's done for the world, I mean, he makes it so that everyone can basically get all of their necessities in 2 days at very low prices. He's changed the quality of life for billions of people. And on top of that, so I think he should be rewarded for that. But what was super interesting about Bezos is he failed a bunch. Like he failed so many times early on in his career. I mean, he barely was able to raise enough capital for Amazon. And so I think that's the mark of any great entrepreneur, which is your ability to work through failure and be resilient. I've failed a bunch of times in my entrepreneurship career, and people only see the successes. And I think that, I'm here to kind of tell aspiring entrepreneurs, if you failed and you failed a bunch, that's okay. Just keep going and keep pivoting, keep trying, and eventually something will work. I promise you. Yeah.
So if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now, one person you find fascinating, who would that be? Who would you love to meet and talk to?
Oh, I would love to meet and talk to Warren Buffett. I mean, I think that he is just incredible in terms of his standing the test of time, not getting caught up in investment hype cycles and being able to have a calm demeanor and still be so successful. And, I think he's a really good example to me of doing the same thing for a long time can pay dividends. A lot of people kind of shoot off into one thing, then go to the next thing and grab onto the next, really exciting thing. But I would just love to understand his not only his investment philosophy, but his life philosophy because, I think he still lives in the same house that
Yeah.
he bought like 30, 40 years ago. He drives like a Toyota. Just very humble despite all the success. And I think that's really important. And I'd love to just learn from him.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. What is the best advice that you've ever gotten? Obviously, all these business leaders that we've mentioned had a lot of great advice and took it. What has that been for you?
Yeah, the best advice that I've ever received is actually less about business, but more about happiness. So I think it's happiness it equals reality minus expectations. So what that means really is if your reality, a lot of people think they're not happy because they have super high expectations. So if you lower your expectations a little bit and your reality is a lot better, your happiness will increase. So what I try to always do is have, obviously I have big goals and things like that, but I keep my expectations reasonable so that when we blow those expectations out of the water, I'm very happy. And so that tends to work well for me.
So, of the 100,000 students you've helped get a better grade and improve their lives and get scholarships, what's been one example, one that really stands out as one of your favorite success stories?
Oh, one of my favorite success stories is from Alexis Heltz. So she improved her SAT score. I think it was 300 points after 6 weeks in our SAT course. Then she went on to get a $100,000 full ride scholarship from the University of San Diego. Then she went on to become a doctor and went to medical school. Then she became a dermatologist. And so I really like to follow the trajectory of some of these students, and just see, how much of an impact. Not saying that, we helped her become a dermatologist, but we kind of led her there with the full ride scholarship and things like that. So I love to see the success they have later on in their lives after going through Prep Expert.
So, what's been what's the one thing that you've done that you're the proudest of?
The one thing that I've done that I'm proudest of is probably, I would say, improving students or reducing students' cost of college or eliminating it. That's like student college tuition is just it's skyrocketing. Everyone knows that. $200,000 is the average cost of tuition at a private university, 100,000 at public universities. Student debt is hitting near $2 trillion. So what I like to do at Prep Expert, I know everyone associates SAT and ACT with college admissions, but what people don't realize is high SAT or ACT scores often open up the doors to half tuition and full tuition scholarships. So if I can help students not go into student debt, or just have very little student debt, I think I've totally changed their life, their financial future. So that's what I would say I'm most proud of, because we've had students get 1.4 million in scholarships, half a million, quarter million. As I mentioned, I think the aggregate now is over 100 million. So it's really having a substantial impact on students' lives.
So, when you were growing up, what was the book that really that left an impression on you? Did you have a favorite book growing up?
Yes. So my favorite book. So when you say growing up, how, like, what age?
Probably just when you were in that third to fifth grade or early, that kind of early childhood.
Oh, early childhood. I think it was, I don't remember the name of it, but I think it was Where the Wild Things Are, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, that was just a fun, interesting book that we would read it at bedtime and stuff like that. Yeah.
excellent. So let me ask you this. Everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, patients, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the perception that a lot of people have is that I'm, naturally a genius or naturally smart. And I would say that my perception is totally opposite of that. I would say I'm a naturally hard worker, which is, I put in a lot of time, effort, and energy to get the results that I want, whether it's in academics or business or entrepreneurship. And that formula has always kind of worked well for me. Um, but from the outside looking in, I think I could see the perception of, well, this guy's just naturally and talented or something like that. And I think that's not the case for most people.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If we get off this call, a time machine pulls up in front of your house, you can either go back in time and see one event in human history, or you could go in the future and see what's going on. Where are you going to go?
Ooh, one event in the past or one event in the future. I think the future is super interesting right now. I'd love to go, 20 years into the future and see all the artificial intelligence and robots that are running our lives and seeing how much easier or not easier our
Yeah.
lives have become. Because I think no one really knows right now what this impact of AI and robotics is going to have. So that would be super interesting to me.
So if anybody wants to reach out, find out about your company, get your materials, take the course, how do they do that?
Yeah, so for parents who are listening, if you have a student in high school, you can check out all of our online SAT courses, ACT courses, tutoring, and college admissions consulting at prepexpert.com. That's spelled PREPEXPERT.com. And for any entrepreneurs listening, I do have a book that's dedicated to entrepreneurship and self-help. It's called Self-Made Success, 48 Secret Strategies to Live Happier, Healthier, and Wealthier. And you can find that on Amazon. Just type in Self-Made Success.
Excellent. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, for your story. It's been fascinating. Best of luck with everything.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.